So I think we can start. It's already 7 p.m. in Lithuania. We have attendees joining our webinar today from different parts of the world. And I know that today there are some alumni of LCC joining the webinar as well. There are some who already joins our webinar for second time or even for the very first time. So to begin with, I would like to introduce briefly what LCC is. And LCC International University is located in Lithuania, in the city of Klaipėda, and it's a North American style university. And it's a very international university where 80% of all students coming from more than 65 different countries. And our professors, 70% of all professors are coming from North America as well. And we are international in terms of student body, our staff and faculty. And we are offering 6 BA programs at LCC as well as 2 master programs. And today we are continuing our webinar series of MA in International Management. And today I would like to present you one of our professors, Dr. David Pietri. I hope that I did say the name correctly. And today we will hear about business data analytics. And at the moment, and now I would like to introduce you to our program director, Dr. Donna Falloon, who is able also to tell more what we will hear today and what is our MA in International Management program.
Okay, thank you, Vidmanti. Welcome to all of you to our next webinar presented by our LCC Masters in International Management faculty. Just to give you a little information on the program, it is a 2-year hybrid program. It is mostly online. We do have a few residency sessions at LCC in Klaipėda, which gives students the opportunity to network with the faculty and other students. Our program is designed for 21st century global needs. And this is one thing that leads to the topic of data analytics. It's very important today. And why is it important today? Dr. Pietri will discuss that. Dr. Pietri has 20 years of experience in information technology with large international companies. He's developed and taught courses in business data analytics, and he will be teaching our new course in August, Data-Driven Decision Making. If you have any questions about the MAIM program, the master's program, or any courses or anything else, you can feel free to ask after Dr. Pietri's presentation. We will leave time for questions and answers, or you can feel free to email me at LCC. And so with that, I will turn the webinar over to Dr. Pietri.
Okay, thank you so much. Happy to be with you fairly early in the morning here on the West Coast of the US. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about what I think is a really interesting topic, and that's this whole thing of data analytics. And it's a really nice merger of business management and also technology and data. So the two kind of have to fit together. So in my mind, that makes it a really fascinating field of study. And in recent years, it's become very, very important. And I think I can share some of those. What I want to do today is share some of those ideas with you, and also share several examples of data visualization that we've done. And then you can kind of look at these visualizations and, sort of from the viewpoint of a business manager, what I trust the results, how could I use this to improve my business or my organization, move forward. So let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. If I can do that, and we can share, and I have a little presentation. Let's see if this works from the beginning. Let's see if it works. Does anybody see that?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. I think we're going to do well. We're going to do well today. anyway, let me show you the structure that I've set up here. We're going to try to do all this in about 45 minutes. So this is going to be a challenge to keep moving, but hopefully pardon me?
I'm sorry, I think you need to reshare it because now we see not the slideshow, but then your other slide. So I think when you made it bigger, then I think you need to switch.
How about that? Can you see that now?
No, it's not full screen now.
Okay, well, let me just say, can you see that?
It's still not full. I think you have to choose another sort of windows to share. Now we are just see the working document.
Yeah, I put it on from the beginning on the slideshow.
Yeah,
but you go ahead.
So if you, I think you need to stop the sharing, and then start sharing and choose the full screen.
Very odd. Oh, I see what you. Yeah, I see it here on the side here. I don't know how to do the full screen, but you can see this okay, right?
We can see the slides, but it's a working document, so it's not full screen when you usually.
Yeah.
It should usually, if you do slideshow, but I see you have that. Usually if you do slideshow and then from beginning, it will go through the slideshow. But we did have one person in the chat say that it is clear, it is okay.
Well,
So my recommendation is if you can't get it to work, press F5 perhaps. It says start from beginning. I don't know if that will help.
Okay, I started it now from the beginning. Do you see it?
It's still the working document, but I think for the sake of time, since we can see it okay, I recommend that you go ahead and proceed.
Okay, let's just do it. Anyway, what I'm going to do is talk about several topics here. First, what is business data analytics and why are people interested in it? Then we'll talk a little bit about the data, and I'll show an example there. Then we'll talk about data visualization. And the challenge here is taking large amounts of data and displaying it in such a way that business professionals can look at it and understand it. We'll talk a little bit about forecasting, which is a very complex topic, but I can show you an example. Also, we're beginning to do a lot more work now on non-numerical data analysis. And finally, I'll end up with some advanced topics. There's a lot happening right now in the field of business data analytics. And I think it's going to be changing very, very quickly. And I can show you some of the things that are upcoming. And then at the end, we can talk about some questions. So as we go through the examples, what I'm going to do is give you a few ideas on each of these topics, and then we'll look at some examples. As you look at the examples, think about insights as a business manager. Put yourself sort of in the position of a business manager, and I'm trying to run my organization, and I'm trying to make smart decisions. In what way could these data displays help me move forward with my organization? I'm not going to focus on, drawing beautiful graphs, real pretty graphs. You can do that. I think probably anybody can do that. But what I want to focus on is presenting data that leads to smart business decisions. And that's what we spend our time on. Okay. First, what is business data analytics and why are people excited about it? Basically, what this is a fact-based process of taking data and transforming it into insights. The key word here is insights for making better business decisions. And here's the problem that we're up against now is there is so much data available right now. It's huge. How do we go about organizing and displaying this data such that business managers can make something out of it? There's just nothing sadder than looking at a big pile of data and trying to figure out what it means and how can I move forward. So if we are able to take vast amounts of data and organize it in a way that we can understand, then here's the excitement part, is that business managers view this as an opportunity to make better decisions in a complex world and sort of move beyond gut instinct or seat of the pants kind of decision making to actually make decisions based on data and on facts. And that's really been, I think, a transformation in business over the past couple of decades. Is business executives expect to see data that backs up our decisions, as opposed to that's the way we always did it, or that's what kind of feels like a good thing to do. So there's been a bit of a transformation. So we use a lot of different concepts in data analytics: descriptive, predictive, and also decision-making theory. And that's part of the work that we do here at LCC. Is there's different ways that you can make decisions. And we need to understand that in addition to organizing and displaying data. Now, the good news with data analytics is that there's a lot of really powerful, wonderful tools available now. The software vendors have really stepped up and built some wonderful tools that we are able to use. Maybe starting with Excel, of course, which is probably not the best tool for this, but it works. But tools like SPSS, Power BI, Tableau, Analytics Solver, MaxQDA, there's a lot of really powerful software out there now that helps us move forward in understanding vast amounts of data. These tools that I mentioned are getting increasingly easy to use. And really, I'm always just amazed the insight, the displays of data that these tools are able to use. And in my mind, anyway, I think the tools are really fun to learn and use. And students in our program are just surprised the way the data is displayed and presented to them, and really much easier than it was years ago. Anyway, let's start out. The first, here's a little, let me give you a little bit of a lecture, just so you kind of know what we're doing, and then we'll look at examples. So data analytics all starts with data, and we have to have confidence in the data if we expect business managers to trust the insights for decision making. So it always starts with the data. Who collected the data? For what purpose? How old is it? Is it complete? And data collection needs to be done such as we can avoid bias. Statistical tools can often be used to describe raw data, which is very, very handy. And there's tools that help us do that. Also, statistics can be used to describe relationships between variables, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And if we look, yes.
Can I ask you a question? We're still on your title slide. Do you intend to advance?
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, let me.
Yeah.
What do you see now?
The title slide.
I can't believe this is happening. Let me end the show. You're on this slide, right?
The very first title slide, yes. Now okay. I see a change. Now I see a change.
All right, we're gonna.
I see a change now. Mm-hmm.
Is it changing?
Yes, yes. It did that time. Now we're back on the title slide.
Is it moving forward?
No, not now.
Really? I can't believe this. It's perfectly good here. Wow.
I'm not sure. Vidmonti, do you have any suggestions?
Let me end the show.
Okay. Yeah, so my suggestion is to end the show, to stop sharing the screen.
And okay, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, start sharing it again and choose the full screen slideshow, if there's an option when you start sharing it again.
Like that?
Not this one. So what you need to do, you need to then start from beginning.
Uh-huh.
And then
start from the beginning, yes?
Yes. And if you find on your keyboard, there is a Windows button.
I don't have that. Oh, right here?
And if you click Windows button, then you would be able to switch between tabs without minimizing the slideshow.
That is weird. Can you see all the slides right now?
We can see the slideshow, however, I mean the slides, but we don't see it in full size.
Slide control. I don't see that. Do you see a slide right now called outline?
Now we see it. The outline of our discussion. We see the slide outline of our discussion.
Can you see what is business data analytics?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just do it this way. Then I'll just move it along this way. Okay, here's the understanding your data. I just did that. Okay, can you see our first example of Chocolates Company?
Web traffic of foreign lines.
Okay, good. Let's just do it this way. And then you can look at that. Okay, here's an example of a data display from a set of data for online shoppers for a chocolates company. And basically I drew two graphs. One being is the amount of time that customers spend on the website, and that's on the left. And you'll see the time intervals at the bottom. And the frequency is on the vertical axis. So you begin to see things like six visitors spent less than 7 minutes, 2 people spent more than 30 minutes. So you can kind of see a histogram, a display of a fairly large amount of data of people visiting a website. So you look at that, and it's basically how long do people spend looking at our company's website? And it looks like, most people, 13 minutes or less. After about 13 minutes, it drops off pretty fast, maybe 15 minutes. Then on the right is the amount of money that they spend. This happens to be US dollars, but it could be really any euros or whatever. So this is the number of people that spent, for example, $18 to $28, and then one person spent, more than $160, and everything in between. So you can kind of look at the frequency of the number of people that spent certain amounts of money. So again, you kind of look at that as a business manager, and sort of what do you conclude? Most people will spend, $78 or less, right? After about 78, it drops off pretty fast. So that gives you kind of an idea of what people are coming to our website and what money they're spending. Now you should see a 2-variable scatter plot. So what I did is I took those 2 variables, time and money, and I put them together. And each one of those points that's on this graph is a visit by an individual that spent a certain amount of time, see, from basically 5 minutes all the way up to 34 minutes. And then the amount of money they spent from, under 20 up to, 160. So as you can see, the data points are all over the place. Some people spend very little time, some people spend a lot, and you can kind of see that the time kind of drops off after a point and the amount of money spent. But what I did then is I put a trend line in the middle of it. So even though these points are really all over the place, you can kind of see sort of an upward to the right trend, which kind of says that spending more time on the website kind of is related to spending more money. Now, I'm not telling you that one causes the other, that if you spend more time, you will spend more money, or vice versa. And what I'm saying is that the two seem to go together. So as a business manager, you'd kind of look at that and you'd go like, maybe it's in our best interest to put content or various things on our website such that people will spend more time on our website. Maybe recipes or ideas or things or maybe about how chocolate is made or something that would interest people, that would encourage them to stay longer, and then hopefully spend more time and more money. Okay, so that's sort of a little glimpse of data, taking a data set and looking at what it consists of and how 2 variables might be related. Now, the next thing that I would like to look at is data visualization. This is where you start with maybe more complex data, and then you visualize it in some way in order, again, in order for the viewer to make sound business decisions. So effective concepts that we use for this is invite the viewer to think about the substance of the data, avoid distorting the data in any way, make large data sets coherent to the viewer. A large, complicated graph is not going to be helpful. People will not understand it. They will not trust it. And then also reveal data at different levels of detail. So there are a number of, I mentioned, good software tools available, offer a wide variety of charts, diagrams, maps, and so forth that we can use the tools and the diagrams that are best for the viewer. Here's an example. Hopefully you can see Cabo Coffee Company. Yes. Are we together on that? Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Good. I think maybe we'll make it through on this presentation. Anyway, this is a data set that we got from the Cabo Coffee Company in Mexico. And I believe that Sue Downward, owner of the Cabo Coffee Company, said that she might be able to join us today. If so, I'd like to say hi to Sue Downward. She has sent data to us for a number of years, and we are able to analyze it and hopefully provide some insights for her business, but also it's of great interest to our students. So just recently, Sue sent me the month of March data, and I did a day part analysis, which is AM and PM for her business. By the way, Cabo Coffee Company is a fairly large roasting company, and they sell to restaurants and stores and everything through Cabo San Lucas, as well as they do quite a pretty good export business to the United States. And also Sue runs 2 coffee shops. And this is data from the downtown Cabo San Lucas coffee shop. So if you look at this on the left, we have her sales by day part, namely by AM and PM. She does not run a late night, whereas some restaurants would have another day part. She does not do that. So I was able to average the amount of money spent in the morning versus the afternoon, and then the total at the top. So you can kind of see that basically her Sunday is a pretty busy day. Monday, not so much. And then it kind of builds up through the week. And then Saturday looks like Saturday and Monday are her slower days. And you can see the amount of money in Mexican pesos that she has. It's basically, as you would expect, a coffee shop is more of a morning business than an afternoon, but she does quite a bit of afternoon, particularly, on Monday, it's almost equal, basically the morning and the afternoon. Thursday, it's very, very much less in the afternoon, kind of interesting. On the right, I took the same data set and then I kind of sorted it by customer counts. The graph on the right is probably more useful for staffing, of how many people she should have working in the shop. And again, you kind of see that it sort of follows the sales. She has more customers in the morning, although a little more even on Monday. And then it kind of goes across fairly level. Thursday afternoon appears to be slow. Looks like Saturday afternoon is kind of slow. Maybe there's a chance there for perhaps one less person in order to support the customers. So again, that's 2 ways to look at the data, one by sales and one by customer counts. And that's a company in Mexico. Here's another display that we did. This is a tool called Tableau. This data is a little bit old, but it kind of shows you what we can do here. This is a retailer that operates throughout the United States. And then this display is showing you a lot of things. It's showing you profit by color. If it's kind of an orange, it's a loss. And if it's a bright blue, it's a profit. And then of course, the intensity of the color is the amount of profit or loss. And then if you look at the lower left, you see the same thing, profit and loss by different categories of their products, phones, chairs, tables, machines, copiers, and so forth. So you can begin to see their sales numbers. Obviously, phones and chairs are their largest. And then you can see that they're looks like making good money on phones, losing money on tables, not doing very well on bookcases. And then there's a little profit projection here over the years of this company. Kind of looks like kind of up and down. You know, they're up for a while, then they're down, you know, over the different quarters. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's more seasonal. But if you look at the map, you can kind of see where they're really doing well and where they're struggling. Obviously, California and New York are doing extremely well. Texas, Illinois, and Texas is a problem. They're really losing a lot of money. So what I did on this is I selected one of the states, in this case, Illinois. And again, we have the same data all displayed, but only for that state, or it could be for that country. So if you look at that they are clearly losing money in this geographical area, but you can kind of see they're making some money on phones, losing money on chairs, doing really bad on tables. That's a big loss. So this kind of gives the business manager an idea of what's going on in Illinois or in this country and why they are experiencing problems. And if you look at their profit evolution, this is quite interesting. A little bit over time, you know, they were kind of going along, you know, over the last couple of years, sort of up and down. And then the last, year, it's sort of like the bottom fell out of their profits. It just plunged. Now, why would that be? Well, I don't know, but my first indication is they may have a new competitor. Maybe a competitor has moved into town and is taking their business. I don't know, but that gives you an idea that a business manager would look at that and say, wow, I'm having problems in certain categories, but something has really gone wrong in this area in the last year. Maybe we've got supply problems, maybe we've got a competitor, but it would warrant a trip there and look around and figure out what's going on for that part of the business. Okay. All right, here's another one now, trends over time. The last graph showed you a little bit of trend, but I'm going to show you some more now. A time series is a sequence of observations that are measured over points in time or for given periods of time. So you try to plot the different points along. The goal is to help the viewer understand patterns that have occurred in the past. So look at the patterns, and then the patterns could hopefully reveal trends in the business that could be opportunities, or as we just saw earlier, problems to be addressed. And also, if you do data visualization over time, you can see complex trends. Some businesses have seasonality, where they have busy and slow seasons, or changes in competition, or maybe economic conditions. So there are some things that trends over time can reveal. Okay, here's a graph. Hopefully you can see Roadrunner Bikes. This is a startup company that basically what this is, to give you an idea what this graph means. Roadrunner Bikes is a startup, and they had a capital investment, and they began making bicycles using 3D printing. If you've seen 3D printers that can build things. So the idea was to make custom bikes for the customer using more advanced carbon fiber materials. And so they started out, they have been in business 6 quarters. They started out in quarter 0, you see over on the left. And they had, shows market share. They had no market share because they were developing their products. Then quarter 2 was test markets. And also in quarter 1, they bought some printers. Then they began making products and selling in a couple of retail stores or online. And then they compete in 3 market segments, as you can see right here. They have recreation, mountain, and speed, 3 different segments. And what this graph shows you with those bars shows you their market share in each market segment. So they started out in quarter 2, you know, pretty strong on mountain, strong on speed bikes, and not so much on recreation. And then as they moved along, they began advertising, coming up with new products, introducing products and so forth through their first year and a half of business. And then the line that you see is their overall market share. So what's interesting here on this is that they start out pretty good, kind of right out at the beginning, they hit a 25% market share. But since then, it's just kind of flat or not really going anywhere. So that's kind of a concern. They have not been able to really build their market share. They start out at almost 25%, and now they're down close to 20%. And also, if you look at the bars, for the different segments, you kind of wonder what's really going on here. They start out strong on mountain, and then the next quarter mountain is low and is going down. Then speed takes over. I don't know the exact problem here, but my suspicion, if I were a business manager, is that this company perhaps has not really come up with a strategy of what they're trying to do. It's like they're trying things. Well, let's try some recreation and see if that goes. No, let's try some speed. Let's try some mountain. And I think that might be what's happening here. And they are making money. It's profitable, and they do have a decent little market share, but they don't really seem to have a path that they're trying to follow to really build the business. That if I were presenting this to the business managers, I would say, what are we trying to accomplish here? I'd kind of like to see some kind of a trend with these segments or with the overall market share to figure out what we're doing, or are we just sort of experimenting it right now? Which is fine if that's what they want to do, but it certainly isn't building their market share. Okay, here's the next one. This is back to Cabo Coffee in Mexico. This is again some more data. As I mentioned, the company has been sending us data for several years. And what I've done here is plotted their sales, monthly sales. This is for 3 years. They've actually sent more than that. I just took 3 years, and they've sent data beyond December of 2022, and I haven't updated that. But I just kind of wanted to show you what a data visualization can reveal. So we have 3 years here. 2020 is in the blue. Then 2021 is in the red, and then the latest, most recent year is in gray, and the sales are in Mexican pesos. The first thing you notice, obviously, on this graph is the pandemic, and that's the plunge in the blue 2020 during the month of April, particularly. Cabo San Lucas is a tourist town. And with the borders closing and the cruise ships no longer operating and the people in town working from home, they just didn't sell much data or much coffee. You can see from the data that their sales were off like 85%, quite a plunge. But then look at that. After they have recovered, from the pandemic, if you look at the blue, and then clearly improvements in 2021, which is the red. And then this year, is even higher. Their sales are up. One thing to note, maybe I can point to it here, you see this little dip here in September of 2022. Look how it looks like the sales went down. Let me explain what happened there. They had a computer failure in September this year, and they lost some data. And Sue and I talked about this. What do we do about there's missing data? Do we try to estimate it or something? And then finally the decision was made, now just move forward. We know that the sales numbers for September 2022 are too low. But so you can imagine that, actually the graph would have been probably pretty straight and then continued on to the end of 2022. You can see that the company has recovered very nicely in terms of sales from the pandemic, the very difficult year of 2020. So that's another lesson here is it's okay if you have data missing, but you just have to be aware of it and don't try to figure out what happened in September. The answer is September was fine. We're just missing some data. Okay, the next thing I did is I did a visualization of the profit trends. And what these are is gross profits. It's sales minus cost of goods sold. And you can kind of see what happened here. And again, those same 3 years, 2020, a plunge in profits and then a recovery. 2021, it increased. I'm not sure why we have a bump here in September of 2021. I'm not sure what that happened, whether that was in fact an increase or there was some data correction. I'm not too sure. But again, you see the little dip in 2022 in September. Again, that's some of the lost data. But overall, if you look at the trend, what do you conclude here as a business manager? We had a really hard year in 2020, but things have really recovered. In fact, we're doing better now than we even did. It just keeps getting better every year. Okay, move on to the next one. So overall, you say not looking too bad. Well, not exactly. Here's the problem. I did one more graph, and this is profit margins. If you've studied profit margins, you know that that is profits divided by sales. So what percent of your sales do you get to keep in profits? And you look at 2020 stayed pretty level. Again, I think there was a data correction in 2021, I think. But here's the problem. Look at 2022. Profit margins are down. And I believe this is a real challenge and a problem to businesses everywhere. Is notice how their sales are up, their profits are up, but their profit margins are down. The problem here is costs of things are going up. I think Sue mentioned that the cost of her coffee beans is up 30%. Cost of cups, cost of milk, cost of everything is increasing. And she's very hesitant to raise prices that fast for fear of losing a lot of customers, making the coffee too expensive. So this graph, presents a little slightly different story, that the company is clearly profitable. They're looking at a 45% gross profit margin, which you may say isn't too bad, but certainly we would prefer it to be somewhere up in the 55 to 60. So there's a challenge there to work on. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is a very complex topic, and I'm not going to get into all of the mathematics that's used for forecasting, but I'm going to just tell you that, forecasting is a challenge. And here's what people are trying to do. Attempt to predict the future based on historical data. So you have a lot of data in the past, over the past years, months, and you're trying to, in some way, forecast or predict what's going to happen in the future. And the data could be linear, or it could include cyclical patterns, seasonality. The key thing to remember is that all forecasting involves uncertainty and the viewer's comfort with error. I can't tell you exactly what your sales are going to be next year, but I can kind of give you a range where I think they're going to be. I'm not able to give you the exact number. Sorry, I can't do that. So you have to think about the viewers, the business manager's comfort with dealing with error and uncertainty. Now, here's where some people go wrong, and it's good to keep in mind. The key assumption is that the future will be somewhat like the past. You're using historical data to try to predict the future. If the future will be very, very different for whatever reason, then data analytics is not particularly useful. You're not just extending what you've done in the past to look to the future. If for some reason you believe the future will be very, very different, then I probably wouldn't do data forecasting. I'd probably use focus groups or experts in the industry and sit down and talk about trends and try to come up with a forecast in that way. Okay, here's a forecast I'm going to show you that we did here's just some data that we'll look at, and then I'll show you the forecast. This is another startup company called Enduratech, and they build tech servers and various tablets and various types of computer equipment. It's called Enduratech, and it's the same kind of a thing. They started out, with nothing, with some investors in Q0, and then they worked on their products, their product development. Q2, they went into test market, and then Q3, 4, 5, and 6, they rolled out their products, advertised, built their distribution channels, and tried to grow the business. So what we have here is I picked 3 data items to look at over the past 6 quarters. One, of course, is the blue line is revenues. So obviously they start out with 0 revenues, right? And then you can kind of see they got some revenues in Q2 from the test market. And then their revenues have been pretty much on the upswing. Q3, they increased. Q4 was kind of level, and then quarters 5 and 6, their revenues really kind of took off. So that's a good sign. The orange line is their net income, their profits. And this is not unusual for a startup company to lose money at the beginning. They lost money in Q1, they lost more money in Q2, not a surprise. They made a little profit in Q3, then they lost money in Q4, and now they're they're in the profits now. I think close to $2 million the US dollars a quarter. Although they've kind of leveled in Q6, but clearly they're profitable. Then the third line that I have here is cash flow. And if you've studied finance, you know that cash flow is, cash coming in minus cash going out. And you can kind of see that they're certainly cash flow positive through the whole 6 quarters. One thing I want to point out, these graphs are trying to tell you a story of the graph is trying to explain something to you. And if you listen carefully, you can kind of figure, okay, I got it. I see what you're trying to tell me. But there's a very peculiar thing in this graph that you may have noticed. The graph is showing us, go to Q1. This surprises some people. Q1, they had no revenue, right? Start up. They lost money, no surprise, but look at that. Cash flow was positive, to the tune of $1 million. They had no revenue, but they were yet cash flow positive in that quarter. How can that be? Simple. Investors are putting in money in the first 3 quarters. So so rather than say, well, if you don't have any revenues, you shouldn't have any cash, the truth is they do. And as startups will always say, cash is king. When you're starting a business, cash is everything. You have to be able to pay your bills, pay your people, and so forth. If you can't, you're out of business. So cash starts is most important. And then, as you can see in the orange line, profits kind of follow. So that is the data. Okay, now let's do a little forecasting. This is fun. I did 2 forecasts here. This is using Excel. One I did a cash flow forecast. The other I did a net income forecast. Now, why did I pick these 2? Often when people start businesses like Enduratech, they intend to run it for maybe a couple of years, and then they want to sell the business. The way that a business is valued to investors is generally one of 2 ways. Investors may look at a company like this as a stream of cash into the future. And if you studied finance, you know that you can do discounted cash flow over time. And that's exactly what they do. They see this as a way that is going to throw off cash. I can discount that into the future, and then I can do the value of the company. So that forecast is on the left. If you look out here, I start out, and I remove quarters 1 and 2 because they're so weird. There's no sales or they're test markets. So I picked up quarters 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is really building the business. And then I looked at the forecast. And so the blue line, down the middle is the forecast. So if you look at this out for another year, their cash flow should basically double, go from about 10 million to 20 million. Also, I mentioned earlier, when we're doing forecasting, you have uncertainty. I don't know exactly what the forecast is going to be for cash flow, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the ball game of 20 million. But you look at the 2 red lines above and below, that's the confidence interval. So we can say with probably 90% confidence that we're going to be somewhere between 18 and 22 million, somewhere in there. Pretty high confidence that that's what this company is going to do. That's important to keep in mind if you're a potential investor or you're going to buy the company, this is the kind of cash you're going to get. Now, go over to the other side on the right, and you see our forecast for net income. The other way that companies value, investors value companies to purchase is they do what's called a price earnings ratio. So they look at their earnings, and you're willing to pay a certain amount for those earnings into the future. Now, this gets a little more interesting. If you look at quarters 3, 4, 5, and 6, you see that their income is sort of up and down. It's all over the place. So therefore, we can do a forecast, right, of net income from about 4 million up to about 8 million. But look at the confidence range. It's way out there. You know, I'm saying that the forecast for net income for this company is about 8 million, but it could be, you know, a little over 2 million. It might be as high as, you know, 13 million. What this is saying is, yes, we can do a forecast, but we have very little idea what's going to happen with profits in net income of this company. Cash flow, you can almost take that to the bank. Net income, no, we don't know what's going to happen based on the trend. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, I have a couple more minutes, I'm almost done, is non-numerical data analysis. This is where we're now beginning to spend, you know, more time, more effort analyzing non-numerical data. And if you think about it, most of the data that we experience in our lives is not numerical data, but it's, you know, things we read, it's things people tell us, videos, images, text, and so forth, or sound. And because all of this data is really digitized pretty much at this point, we're able to begin to analyze this non-numerical data. Now, tools are available to help with that, but they're not as well developed as our statistical data visualization tools. Most of the concepts that are used today, and this may change, and I'll tell you in a minute what's happening. Mostly what happens is we get the digital data, text, video, images, and so forth, and we code it with things that we're looking, words, images, sounds, and so forth. We code it, and then we use the tools to find patterns and themes within the data. And here's an example I'll show you. This is from a tool called MaxQDA, which is a non-numerical analysis tool. This is a 5-minute TEDx talk that was digitized, and then we analyzed the text. The topic of the talk was make your life simpler. Get rid of all of the stuff in your life, the stuff you buy and the stuff you have stacked around in your house or your apartment. Get rid of that stuff. Live life simpler, live life easier, live life less expensively, and therefore live life happier. That's the message. So we digitize that, and then you can kind of see the codes that we use, like stem the inflow of data, downsize, more happiness, less stuff, smaller space, smaller environmental footprint, more freedom. You can kind of see the messages here of how we coded that presentation. And then if you look at the number, the frequency of the codes is shown, and then the percentages. So, you know, so the underlying theme, if you look at this from MaxQDA, the underlying theme is use your space efficiently, and that's what, 21%. Also more happiness, downsize, and so forth. Unfortunately, we don't have fancy graphs and so forth with this, but it gives you an example of how we code non-numerical data and then look at frequencies and then try to draw conclusions from the talk or from the picture or the video or so forth. Okay. And here's another display from MaxQDA. This is called a word cloud, and it just shows you the most popular, most frequently used words. The bigger the word, the more frequently it's used. Things like little and equal and so forth. I don't know if this is overly useful chart, but it just shows you through the whole text the most commonly used words in that TEDx presentation. Okay. Okay, last slide here is advanced topics. So what I want to leave you with is there's a lot of excitement to come with data analytics. It's almost like we're just getting started. You know, we've accomplished a lot, and I've shown you examples of that, but there's a lot of new things happening in business data analytics, which I think is going to make it even more exciting in the coming years. Things like data mining, simulations, clickstream analysis from online, decision risk analysis. And then the big one I'm going to point out, I don't know much about this yet. That's what I'm going to have to work on, is these analytical tools, and MaxQDA is a good example of that. They are including AI software in their tool, like Chat. GPT is being included in their data analysis tool. So and this could change everything. So rather than going in and coding a bunch of things or drawing graphs, what if we could just put a lot of data into the tool and then ask it a question like we do with Chat GPT, and it answers the question and draws graphs for us? I mean, that is huge if our tools are able to do that. I don't know. Of course, then you're going to say, now, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for a lot of bias and false findings. I understand that. But I happen to believe that AI, and as Dr. Falloon said, we're going to be teaching a class on this. I'm going to have to figure out and do some examples of using AI with data so people can get a grasp of what it can do and what it can't do. So I would leave you with a one final thought. Once you have a pretty good understanding of analysis using the numerical and text data that we looked at, some of these advanced topics could be really exciting for your business and for your career and moving forward. So yes, there's a lot of excitement with data analytics, business data analytics, but in my opinion, the real excitement is yet to come. And anyway, if you have ideas or things you'd like to share with me, also I'll put a plug in that if you are in a business or have contacts with somebody like Cabo Coffee that would like to work with us, here's my email address. And also you could contact Dr. Falloon, and it would be really interesting to work with you to help your business as well as help our work and help our students. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Petrie. Very interesting. Are there any questions from any of the attendees? I know someone in the chat mentioned a question but didn't say what the question was. Are there any questions? I do have one question while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, and that's on the tools. You mentioned Power BI, SPSS, Tableau, Excel. I know that there a lot can be done with Excel today.
Yes.
What would you say is the most popular tool in the United States, and is it different in Europe?
Well, in my experience, the most popular tool, for better or for worse, is Microsoft Excel. And it certainly isn't my favorite tool, but it's kind of one of these tools that can do about anything you want, but none of the things that it does I think is overly great. But you can see from my examples that it clearly does the job. But I would say the big tools that we have in the US for numerical data is Tableau. And and I showed you an example from that. That's an amazing tool. And then also Power BI, which is a Microsoft tool, is widely used. Then in terms of the non-numerical data, I would say it's Atlas TI, and then it's MaxQDA are the leaders that and those tools are changing so fast. You know, the AI, I mean, I just found out about that last week, that the new release of MaxQDA has AI in it, and my mind went like, wow. So I can tell you what's going on today, but I'm going to tell you that tomorrow it could be very, very different. As you know, Microsoft invested a large amount of money in the company that built ChatGPT. I think to the tune of $10 million. So I would not be half surprised to see Chat GPT in Excel in the near future. So this could completely change what I just said, that Excel could become the leader very, very soon. So we use them all, and we try our best to keep up. Let's just say that.
It is interesting, and you bring up an important point that the tools change so quickly. So it's something that you keep up with.
It can be frustrating, but it's also, in my mind, really exciting and fun.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking. It's challenging, it's exciting. You have something, you don't stagnate in your learning. You keep learning, which is good.
Yep.
I do have one other question, and this goes back to Cabo Coffee and the problems during the pandemic when sales went so low for basically everyone. Sorry, I was reading something in the chat. So do you know if perhaps she started
Sue Downward, has become a good friend, and she likes working with our students. But yes, she began several years ago selling online, and you can go to her website, cabocoffee.com. In fact, you can order some of her coffee, which is pretty amazing. She began selling mostly in the US, and that business has really taken off over the last year or so. And I believe she's using a number of distribution centers now in the United States. I think 5, she told me. And she's roasting a lot of coffee and bagging it and sending it to the US. So yes, her online sales have really helped her along. I did not include that data. I showed you only coffee shop sales. So arguably she could have used, a lot of the online sales to make it through the pandemic when the bottom just fell out of her business in her 2 coffee shops in Cabo San Lucas. But she recovered very nicely, work with the profit margins being the challenge at this point. Sue has just been a wonderful partner through this whole thing. And I'll say that we've had sessions where the students, we get in Zoom and Sue will be there. And Sue's a very savvy business manager and a very fun person. So the students enjoy talking to her, and they learn a lot. And of course, we're trying to come up with ideas to help her business. And we do some of that as well, offer an idea, and she says, wow, I hadn't thought about that. I'm going to go work on that. And then we know we have helped her as well, in addition to just looking at her data.
Yeah, it's always good to have a real company. There's a question in the chat. It says, could you please tell us more about possibility to integrate AI or ChatGPT to data analysis? Also, could we consider it ethical in terms of data protection, integrating open source AI to corporate or other business related data?
Yeah, this is the big question that everybody's struggling with right now. The governments are involved and businesses are involved, and there's been some surprises of using Chat GPT to help write computer code. And then they find out that all of my proprietary code has been revealed to the world. It's a big, big challenge. And, artificial intelligence has been talked about for a long time. And we have little pieces of it here and there, like maybe mortgage approvals or things like that. But what's happening now is huge, where people can just go and ask questions and it searches, it gives you the answer. Although interestingly, with Chat GPT, it does not give you its sources of where it found this data, which I think is a concern. It just says, here's the answer. And you go like, well, okay, it seems useful, but I'm not exactly sure where that came from. I think newer versions of the software will improve and show you how it came up with the answer. But yes, data privacy is a huge concern when you begin sharing your data with a tool, with these AI tools, that then turns around and shares your data with the rest of the world. And as I mentioned, there's been some surprises where confidential code was suddenly exposed to the world. Confidentiality is a concern. And frankly, you know, we just don't know the answer. I mean, this is a new tool that arguably could change the way we live. Hopefully for the better. I'm a very optimistic person. It'll help us a lot, but then there's some real concerns that what happens when a political bias gets into the answers, and then people begin reading the solutions or answers to questions in a tool like chat, and then you find out that some organization or some individuals have put their political spin into it, and they're using that to adjust people's perceptions that may or may not be accurate. So it's a huge concern, and we have a lot to learn about it. And so, but whether we like it or not, I think it's going to be part of the future, and it will be part of data analytics. Maybe it will replace a lot of what we've seen. I don't really know. But I am sure that we have to keep up with it and identify what it can do, and then what are the concerns, and make sure that our students and all of our business colleagues and so forth are aware of that and learn together. Sorry, that's not a great answer, but I think it's all we know right now.
It's a good answer, and you're right that it is here to stay. It's going to be here, and we just have to learn how to manage it and how to use it in the best way, in the most ethical ways. So I think we're about out of time. I don't know if anyone has any other questions. They could email Dr. Petrie, or they could email me or admission if they have any question. And thank you, Dr. Petrie. Very interesting.
Okay.
Vidmanti, I will turn it over to you to close out.
Yeah, so just before we finish, I wanted to share that we are having and hosting another and the last webinar this academic year, which is on May 23rd. So you'll receive an invitation to register this week. So don't miss that in your email inboxes. But here also among some of the questions, there was someone who was asking about master's program in international management. So as a reminder, I would like to let everyone know so that the late application deadline is May 15. So the application deadline is approaching very fast. So if you are considering applying to LCC, please apply as soon as possible. And if you have any questions about the admissions process, about the program, you may contact us at admission@lcc.lt, and we will be able to answer your questions. And if necessary, we will direct you to Donna, who would be able to answer more questions about the content of the program and the courses taught there and so on. Well, thank you everyone who joined us tonight for an early morning. Thank you, David. Thank you, Donna, for joining. And I wish you all to have a good week, and hope to see you on May 23rd for the last webinar this academic year. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So long.